You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker. I'm the owner and founder at Good Life Family Chiropractic here on the south side of Lincoln. And I'm coming to you today with another message of health, hope, and wholeness. And if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then I suggest you find a pen and paper real quick because you're going to want to write this number down: 531-289-7100. Again, that's 531-289-7100. Because what we're doing today, and I'm going to get into the details of this here in just a minute, but for the first 5 callers, we're going to be giving you a discount, a 50% discount off of every fee that we charge on the first visit. If you are looking for an answer to what ails you, then pick up the phone and call our office right now, 531-289-7100. And, I had a patient about 2 years ago. We just celebrated our 4th anniversary. And so about 2 years ago, I'm looking back and I'm seeing Cheryl had called our office, like many of you, after listening to the radio show. At that time, we were just on Saturday mornings, and she actually had this radio station set as her alarm clock. And she woke up and she heard my voice welcoming him in. And I asked, "Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired?" And she said to herself, "Yes, I am." And I made the exact same offer to her. And she picked up the phone and she called our office and she told us a little bit about what had been going on with her health. She was, over 100 pounds overweight, dealing with a back that she had previously had surgery on. She was having neck pain. She was having shoulder pain. She was getting the occasional headaches. Her blood pressure was too high. Her blood sugar was too high. Just dealing what most Americans actually deal with. These are statistically, most Americans are dealing with these problems. Now, it doesn't mean that you're healthy if you're not, but she was actually a nurse. She was a professor at a local nursing school and had been through the medical route. She had had back surgery to shave off a herniated disc, but the back still bothered her. It hadn't addressed the cause. She was taking medications to cover up the effects of some of these diagnoses that she had gotten, but it wasn't helping her. So I had her come into the office. We did a full neurological assessment. We looked at her spine. We looked at her range of motion. We looked at her posture. We looked at a digital nerve scan, surface electromyography, to measure the output of her central nervous system and how it was controlling these organ cells and tissues. And we found severe interference and disruption between her brain and her body. All things that our medical doctors had missed, but all things that we could address very easily in the clinic. And so we started her out. We started out with adjustments, and we did that 3 times a week to start. And within the first couple of visits, she was already starting to feel a little bit better. Within the first couple of weeks, we did a re-exam. We saw that her x-rays were starting to change and her neurology was starting to improve. And within the first couple of months, she was beginning to get her life back. She was no longer sick and tired of being sick and tired because she was happy to no longer feel that way. And that's the exact same thing I want for you. And so if you're sitting there and you're just like Cheryl, and whether that's dealing with back pain or dealing with neck pain or shoulder pain or headaches, or you're overweight and can't lose the weight, or you're dealing with high blood pressure or diabetes, and nobody's ever given you an answer to actually address the cause of your problem and give you hope for being able to reverse your condition, and instead told you that you are destined to this and you'll have to do this thing for the rest of your life and live in this condition. If you don't want that, then pick up the phone right now, 531-289-7100. And that's very much the case that Americans are in. You look at the statistics. We are the most obese country. We're the most overweight country in the world. We deal with more heart disease. We deal with just as much cancer as anyone else. And that's in one of the best, most well-funded healthcare systems in the world. You look at the amount of money that we spend on healthcare, and it's astronomical. It's almost 1/5 of our gross domestic product, all by itself. Just by itself. How it breaks down: the average American spends $11,000 out of pocket on healthcare costs each year. It's the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States. And what would Dave Ramsey say if he was to tell you that? He'd say, prepare for it, plan for it. But we're not. We're relying on our health insurance. And guess what? Out of those bankruptcies, 85% of those people had health insurance. And so health insurance is not the answer. In fact, if you look at what the problems are, there's three major problems with our healthcare system. The number one problem is that we don't prepare, we don't plan, we're not looking at prevention at all. We're reactive. We wait until we feel it. And just take, for example, why you would go to a medical doctor. First off, you would get a symptom. Let's say it's a headache. You get a headache. What do? Do you go look for the cause of that headache? Do you say, I'm not drinking enough water? I spent all day looking down at my cell phone yesterday. Or, I had this car accident some years ago where I had a whiplash type trauma. I felt okay walking away from that, or I had a little bit of pain coming out of that, but I never did a follow-up to make sure that it healed properly. And then what do we reach for? We reach for that over-the-counter aspirin or ibuprofen or Tylenol or Motrin. And if it dulls the pain to the point where we feel okay, we think we're fine and we go on with our life. But if we keep doing that over time, ultimately those headaches are going to get worse. If we never address the cause, those are going to get worse. And so then we end up at our medical doctor's office. And he does the same thing. He looks at your symptoms. He gives you a diagnosis. He prescribes you a medication, and then he sends you home. And if that dulls the symptoms enough where you feel like you're doing better, you'll never go back, but you still haven't addressed the cause. So what's going to happen? You will go back. You'll end up with a stronger symptom. You'll end up with a stronger diagnosis. You'll end up with a stronger medication. And then if that medication doesn't end up working, then they'll send you to a special doctor. That special doctor will give you a special test. And that special test will lead to a special diagnosis. And that special diagnosis will come with a special medication, all at a special price. That doctor is called a specialist, by the way. And if that doesn't work to make you feel better, then you're sent out for a surgical referral. Probably not going to diagnose you any differently, but just confirm that diagnosis with his own level of testing and maybe some diagnostic imaging. But ultimately, he's going to do a surgery to remove organ cells or tissues that God designed to help keep you healthy because he has deemed that you are better off without those. That's our healthcare system. Problem number one is that we are very reactive with that. Now, those doctors are the best trained doctors in the world. They're the best funded, the best researched. What they do at a higher level than anywhere else. How do we know that that's working? Look at the statistics. As the most expensive healthcare system in the world, our healthcare system underperforms every other industrialized system, every other industrialized nation in the world. If you want to get different results, you got to do something differently. Those other countries are modeling their systems after ours. Maybe not in how it's funded, but in how it's practiced. They address the same thing in the same way, but they get better results with less funding, with lower quality doctors, and at a lower price. And why is that? It's actually a failure and breakdown of what is health, understanding what health is. You have to know what health is. You have to start there, because if you don't, then all you're going to do is end up treating a problem that is a lack of health with drugs, medication, and symptom management. And that's never gotten anyone truly healthy in the world. Because what we base our health on in this healthcare system, in this culture, in this country, is the presence or absence of symptoms. If you think you feel good, you assume you're healthy. And that is in no way defined as health anywhere in the world, except your own head, except in our culture. Even our healthcare system doesn't define health that way. Health is a state of 100% optimal function and healing, according to Dorland's Medical Dictionary. The ability of your body to heal and function, basically the ability of your body to adapt to its environment. When it stops adapting well, when it stops functioning well, when it stops healing well, then you become dysfunctional, you become sick, and eventually that disease process overtakes you and it leads to an early death. That's where we find ourselves with our life expectancy dropping. What's it dropping from? It's dropping from heart disease. It's dropping from cancer. We're dying younger and younger because those numbers are going up and up. Last year, 840,000 people died of cardiovascular disease. And on average, for them to feel a symptom, to know to do something about their cardiovascular disease, it took them having 20 years of that disease diagnosably building up in their body before they felt the first symptom. And that symptom, 63% of the time, that very first symptom was the heart attack itself. It's a 50% survival rate. So we're setting ourselves up for failure. Cancer is the same way. 600,000 plus deaths last year due to cancer. It's projected to be the number one cause of death this year, according to the CDC. And if you wait until you feel a symptom of cancer, guess what? It's already been there for 20 years. At 10 years, it's considered lethal. At 8 years, even if you're getting this tested, colonoscopy, mammograms, prostate exams, CT scans, PET scans, MRIs, it takes 8 years of having cancer actively growing in your body before it's medically detectable. No wonder we're losing the war on cancer. No wonder it's growing so fast. But if we continue to define health as the presence or absence of symptoms, then we're going to lose every war when it comes to health. Let's redefine our health. Let's start by focusing on function and understanding and recognizing what controls that function. Because God put an amazing power inside of each of us. It grew us out of 2 cells. It formed our bodies, 36 trillion cells, by duplicating and replicating and replacing itself until we're this living, loving, thinking clay sitting across the radio from one another right now. And it continues to grow. It continues to replace itself every single day. That innate intelligence inside of each of us is what keeps our heart beating, our lungs breathing, a cut on our leg healing, and that's housed and controlled inside the nervous system, your central nervous system. So your brain, your spinal cord, and the nerve roots control every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. And we know that because if we cut the brainstem, you die immediately. If we cut all the nerves going to the heart, you die immediately. If we don't cut that though, right? Because we actually have a spine in place to surround and protect the brain and the brainstem and the spinal cord and those nerve roots as they exit off, that's protected by bone. If we don't cut it, but we damage the spine such that it's moved out of alignment, even the slightest amount, even just 2 millimeters or 2 degrees left out of alignment for even 5 minutes is enough to restrict the communication between the brain and the organs at the other end of that nerve by as much as 60%. That's dysfunctional. That's a lack of adaptation. That is the disease process in action. That condition where your spine is misaligned and damaged and doesn't move properly is called subluxation, the most sinister condition I know of, because 80% of the time you will not feel that, but 100% of the time it's disrupting and creating dysfunction in your body and in your life. And if you don't want that to affect you, I suggest that you run. Don't walk to your phone. Pick it up right now and call my office, 531-289-7100. We're standing by to take your phone call and set up your very first visit at a 50% discount. The first visit is all data acquisition. We'll even include the first treatment there. If we do an adjustment today, then, or within the next week, we'll include everything, including the reported findings, all of that for under $100, just $95 if you call right now. That's 531-289-7100. Again, 531-289-7100. I'll see you again next week for another episode of Ask